Our guest for the hour is the Senator of Kisii County, Senator Onyonka, and he'll be with us in a few minutes. You know, something about Ombaso Road makes people, take a wrong turn, go under instead of going over. But,
In fact, it is the right thing to do. Because you're driving on a road and you then come across
a contraption.
Yes, and then you come across a road that used to exist and then it doesn't quite exist. Then you come across a road and they're all, what do you call those big tins which they put on the side of the road?
Let's just call them barriers.
The barriers.
Oh, the barriers.
The tins, yes, they're tins, but they're very big. Barrels, that's the thing I was looking for.
Yeah.
Now, you will get confused, okay? So it's perfectly understandable.
Okay. All right. As we're waiting for Senator Onyonka to join us, there is a notion, and probably let's divest ourselves of it, that, with all the things that happen in the nation, the tendency is to become very negative about them, and that you continuously point out these negative things, and then you just have a negative seeking society that let me paint the picture for you. And
all right, paint the picture, Picasso.
All right, thank you very much. My brush is out.
Yes.
And you say, okay, well, why is it that all the headlines that we see are negative? Why do we pick out on those headlines and want to open them up a little bit more? Why do we always find something there? Can't we look for the positive and talk about those things? Because after all, development begets development, does it not? You talk about the good things, and that will, give folks who are doing these good things to continue doing better things. Is it wrong to point out the things that are going wrong?
Do.
Yes.
In the Star, State House ghost workers exposed.
Bam.
Just leave it there.
Okay.
In the Business Daily, top counties in borrowed shared phones use revealed. In the Standard, MPs live up to their laundry tag yet again. JSC to consider plea to kick out Kome 8 judges. Daily Nation, judiciary under siege. Alarm as hundreds fail to report varsities over funding crisis. Bugay moved in police shake up. The Nairobian, Narcos Queen Joyce Akinyi, lovers and drug empire. Mukurino Karangu displays intimacy to wife and special friend. Okay, now, of all those things I have read, the negative one is which one? Which of these headlines is negative?
Which is not.
What? Top counties in borrowed shared phones use revealed.
It's a good thing.
These are people who understand, have a sense of community. I have a phone you don't have. Doesn't mean you can't communicate.
Yeah.
By all means, come and use my phone.
Okay.
In fact, even let M-Pesa come through my phone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay? State House, ghost workers exposed.
It's a good thing.
Well, yeah, you see, the thing
exposed.
is, anything that talks to you about life after death, it's good. Ghost workers.
I got it.
You got it. But then, but the other stories, right? Like in Siasa, the headline is President Ruto's real enemies now firmly with him in government. There's no such thing as enemies. How can this be bad news? This just tells you how we in the media sometimes misrepresent things. Enemies. The other day here, it was Kenya Kwanza. Look at the formation now. Where are the enemies?
It's broad-based.
It's broad-based.
People who are your enemies don't want to see you, talk to you. They don't even want to hear your name.
Yes.
These ones you are mentioned. You just stop short of calling the president or giving him an ecclesiastical name. Yes, Your Excellency. Okay, look at the Daily Nation. Judiciary under siege. Judiciary has been under siege for a very long time.
Yeah.
Okay, they are blamed for this, they are blamed for that, they are blamed for that. And the freedoms we have, the people who've gone to JSC and said, kick them out. Fine, we will see how that thing works out, won't we? Okay? Wait, what's negative about it?
I think, as well as, even if it's, you call that negativity or what you would want to say, I mean, as well as the Constitution gives you the right to just speak. So whether it's negative or positive, just speak.
Speak.
I think
not go around insulting people.
I get it,
Speak.
but I think the greater call here, and this is where this debate comes about, the greater call is that can you not find anything that is good that's going on?
Let me read. Let me read something that is good. MPs live up to their laundry tag yet again. This is positive.
Yeah.
Confirming something that we know.
There's consistency.
Yes. How is it negative?
Yeah.
These are the same people who just in the time for not this even parliament, the other parliament as well. These guys have just followed the same trend. my friend, this borrowing limit, they just keep upping it and upping it and upping it and upping it. What does it mean?
We get
Every
more
time they
money.
up it, we have more to pay.
Yeah.
And then we have less to spend in the country.
Yes.
They've done it yet
Again.
Not that the people whom they have vetted have anything wrong with them. No, they are Kenyans. Okay? That's the qualification.
Yes.
And they're politicians. Another qualification. They've been in public service before. Another qualification. These guys are okay. Okay? Unless someone's going to tell me that they have better candidates. Okay? So where's the negativity?
Okay.
You don't do.
Yes.
I know I'm being facetious. It's not I don't know.
But I saw you a while ago.
Yeah, but you do know the point I'm trying to make.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay? When things are said that are unpleasant, they're not necessarily negative.
Negative, yeah.
For instance, yesterday we had a guest called Professor Kagwanja, and he talked about Raila Odinga's age, and he talked about AUC, and how it is that someone of his age should be trapezing across the continent. That was misinformation, really, because one, the secretariat is what is the AUC.
Yes.
The chair has a deputy. It is a deputy who is in charge of day-to-day running, and these things called running around. The deputy.
Yes.
Then you have a commission. The commission are like ministers who have dockets like agriculture, infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. That's what they have. So essentially, he doesn't have to do any running around.
Yeah.
The stature that he has enables him to be able to open doors, because if you're talking about presidents within the AU, he's a man who is their peer, and in some cases, he's above being their peer.
Yeah.
He's a voice you can listen to in that position. Now, this is my view on the subject. But when it is presented and it is said, because of his age, and you ask the question, so you question, well, where does age come in here?
Yes.
Does he have other qualities apart from his age?
Age that needs to be considered.
Yes, and do they supersede the age? And the answer is yes. One could argue age even augments them.
Yeah.
And one could argue that, if we talk about, sure, if they're unpleasant to hear, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are negative.
No,
Because
not necessarily.
If you're going to throw a fishing line into a pond or a river, and you would and you catch chickens, then I would be surprised.
Yes.
But if you throw a fishing line into a pond and you catch fish, then I would say, okay, well, that's what you get, because that is what is there.
When you catch fish, that's why it's called fishing.
Fishing.
Exactly. That is what it is there.
Yes, we don't call it hunting. We call it fishing.
If you open your eyes and you look around the country and the things that are happening are hitting you in the face, ghostbusters.
And that's what you're talking about.
That is what is happening. That is what you see. It's not conjuring. It's not making up. This is what you see. I think what the onus lies there, the onus that lies then upon us, is to be able to say, look, if this is going wrong, what are we aware? Number one, that there's a problem. Who is in a position to do something about it? How can it be fixed? Yeah. And that's why you have this constant conversation.
And I think as well as what people are calling negative, as it is, like you could just read that story on State House.
You talk about State House ghost workers exposed.
Is that a negative story? How I'd look at it just from that alone is the fact that now the public, we are aware that there are ghosts.
Workers everywhere, including what they're saying
in the
is
State
including
House.
State House. That's what they're actually saying.
And that's a good thing, because now we can actually even call out the government, call out those who live in State House and ask them, how is it that you have ghost workers in State House? Fix that problem. Essentially what the headline is telling you, fix that problem. It is a positive headline.
We like to employ our relatives and friends and their relatives. We understand that helping people is finding them employment.
Yes.
Okay? And it is the mindset that we have. If I know somebody in a position of authority, they must help me give a relative of mine a job. When jobs come up and we hear they're recruiting policemen, I find somebody who I think wants to be a policeman or wants to be an AP or whatever it is. It's how we think.
Yeah.
So when you find it's a growth industry where people keep collecting bribes to offer jobs which they are not in a position to offer or to give, and then people complain, why are you complaining?
Yeah.
You are a part and parcel of the group that's encouraging that trade.
True.
Stop complaining. If there was no one offering bribes for people to be employed, what do you think would happen?
People would be employed for merit.
Exactly.
Merit, yeah.
Yes.
At least we'd see a higher number of people being employed for merit. But so long as it is accepted that to get a job, you must give people money, then what do you think you're doing? And you are part of and parcel of that group of people who give. don't complain.
Don't complain.
No, don't.
Don't
You have abrogated the right to complain when that is what you've done.
And there is also, in relation to what it is you're talking about, City, we have an individual in Nairobi County Assembly, Mosiria, who's in charge of environment. He's going around these communities, residential areas, and making sure that clubs are not there and whatnot. And when you go to his social media where he posts on the work that he does, you see people complain, toka hapo, you see kazi, watu wanafanya kazi, go sleep in your house and whatnot, forgetting that there is actually even a planning code on where you can have a club and whatnot. And when this man is doing something that you would see to be positive, we go to say what you're doing is negative for us.
That is what freedom does.
Yes.
You get to see a diversity of how that is actually manifested.
Yes.
And again, that's where we judge your capacity for tolerance, because some of it may disagree with the way you think completely.
Exactly.
Okay? But this is someone who's probably protecting their turf. And they feel, why is this person interfering with our feel-good? When don't I have freedom? You do. But when that freedom infringes on other people's freedom, then you have a problem with that freedom.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's why you have watchdogs. You have watch people, rather. People who want to ensure that you don't do that very thing.
They call them cartels?
Well, for that reason, that is why, for instance, if you feel like taking a pee, you can't stand on the side of the road and take a pee.
Well, you can, but you shouldn't.
You can, but you shouldn't.
No, you are not supposed to.
Exactly. That's the thing. You can in terms of, I say can in terms of ability.
Or meaning it's something that
you have the capacity.
You have the wherewithal to.
You can.
Yes,
but you should not.
How very apt. Thank you.
You see, and I think for me this is the thing that I think that sometimes folks are blamed for pointing out what would be negative, because truly we are very uncomfortable with being called out. We are very uncomfortable with saying that there is a problem here, it ought to be fixed. We are very uncomfortable with saying, you've been doing this thing for the longest time and it is wrong. But we don't know how to call each other out. Even if we do, we are also uncomfortable with saying that this is wrong. Can you please pull back from it, or can you stop it? Or here are the consequences should you continue to do that.
But when we ourselves participate in wrong and we expect support with our wrong, if not a whole troop of cheerleaders, then we will not call it out, because we also want someone to side with us when we know we've done wrong. Okay? So it is the culture that we have over time manufactured, we've created, and now it's become the norm.
So that is why when there is an accident and there's somebody who is responsible for the transport system and they resign, as happened in Greece, Italy, or when somebody takes his own life because he cannot bear with living knowing that people died because something that was under his control and under his authority did not work. When we hear such stories, we are met with chagrin and we say, how? Somebody resigned? Were you joking? Even on a lesser issue, somebody resigned from her office because a teapot, it's not a lie, teapot was missing from the inventory of 1, 2, 3. And then she said, you know what, under my watch, something went missing.
Yeah. There's an uncle of mine who lives in Liverpool. He was telling me the other day that power did not go off. There was no blackout. It just stukad. It just mad kidogo. Yeah? That individual resigned because the residents of Liverpool asked him, how could this happen under your watch? In Kenya, power goes for 3 days. Whole night, airport, no power. But still, people are in offices.
Well, but this is the thing, and when we talk about accountability and we talk about then holding people responsible for the positions that they do have, we need to get comfortable with saying, you are in a position to do 1, 2, 3. You should actually. I am in a position to make sure 1, 2, 3 happen. If I don't, what am I doing there? Where did you think you're going? To the beach? Where did you think you were going?
Let me just read this story for you. This is by BBC, a gentleman by the name of Joel Quinto. Yoon Suk Yeol has become South Korea's first sitting president to be arrested after investigators scaled barricades and cut through barbed wire to take him into custody.
Yes.
Why? Why?
Introduced martial law to the citizens.
Yes, exactly, and it plunged the country into turmoil.
And don't forget, another Park in Hay was actually taken to jail for bribery.
No, South Korea are famous for jailing former presidents. It's something they do the way we take a trip to our ancestral homes.
Yeah.
Yes.
With regularity.
Yes.
Well, guess what? The senator for Kisii County is here. He is late. And if I'm just going to follow what I've just said, we will not be uncomfortable calling folks out for, if we say 9 o'clock and then they come at 9:27. Senator, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. If the Standard Center was situated in the CBD, I would have been on time. I apologize for having been late, and the design of the expressway is in such a way that once you miss a turn, you have to go to the airport, make a U-turn, and make another U-turn at Capital Center. By the time I was turning back, I'm just tired.
We made the excuse for you before you got here. Do not worry. Do just giving you a hard time because that is what we must do. Yes,
Far be it from me not to
it
live
is
up to
duty.
my expectations.
And yes, but we know what this road is like. We work on this road every day. One moment you have an entrance, you come back the following day there's a hole.
Yeah.
So
I understood why UDA guys behave the way they do. That's why they buy helicopters. It's easy. I mean, it's logical, it's commonsensical. Yeah. Under these circumstances, you must buy a helicopter.
Well, there we go. How's that for, saying Happy New Year?
Good morning, everybody. How are you all? I am so happy to see you. I watched your show yesterday with Barack Muluka. Jesus Christ, I nearly shed tears. Yeah, it was deep. I really, really loved what you are doing. The conversation was awesome. I loved it.
Asante Sana.
Yes.
Well, we're glad that you're here. You know, all things notwithstanding.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're going to go to a break, interestingly, in just a short while. But, let's just get off into this. Yes. There's been a lot, isn't it, Senator? And even when we start to ask the questions about where we are, where Kenya is as a country, and we've been having, bits and bobs of these conversations and saying, okay, Kenyan citizens, those who are not in positions of leadership, but those who have a responsibility to hold leaders accountable, what's their role and how can we play, a role in this and say, come on, guys, we got to do better. Because aside from all the academic talk, it's the nitty gritty. We've got to do better. How do we do that?
The beauty of all this, or rather, should I say, not even the beauty, the most amazing thing is that I suffer from being a depository of historical data and information, and the reality I see, every single thing seems to be repeating itself. And it confirms what I've previously said before, that the reason why I think our country is broken down deliberately is so that it then does not move. I mean, if you see the mistakes we make, they're the same. If you look at the issues, if you look at the way we are handling our governance, if you look at the constitutional mismanagement we are having, look at IBC not being set, the language you hear politicians are throwing around, the behavior, the scandals that you see coming out on a daily basis, weekly basis, I am like stuck. I'm stuck on an old record. Yeah, it sounds the same, looks the same, it's going to have the same results. That is the sad thing of it. The beauty of it is that Kenyans are, again, surprising me amazingly because they are talking about things. They are raising issues. I think Kenyans are refusing to accept the mediocrity and the silliness of our behavior. The attitude we have, where we behave incredulously like people who didn't even go to school. I mean, we all behave like fools,
Wouldn't you say going to school is sometimes overrated?
Yes.
Because surely, if this is what we get as a result.
Exactly.
All right. I mean, look, so I almost hear you saying that, then Kenyans are doing the right thing. The citizenry are going in the right direction when you say call out people say these things when we see this behavior of an incredulous nature.
Yes.
Right? Let's take a break and then we'll come back and we continue with this. The good senator is here. We'll allow him to catch a breath, after running to the airport and back. And then we'll come back.
I'm going to buy a helicopter after I steal public money.
Where the money comes from.
I'll steal your money.
The good senator for Kisii County, Richard Onyonka, is here with us this morning. We must say that the last couple of months, we have heard you. Sorry?
Proverb.
Oh, we didn't talk about the proverb.
No, we didn't.
It's not my fault. You see, these trips to the airport and coming back just
It can be quite confusing.
They're actually quite proverbial.
So how about we do that? This is the nice thing about when you speak, because you can stop speaking and then do something else, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
CT, where he normally goes every week. So let him share the proverb and then you can tell us what you think about that, no?
Yes,
All right.
we are in the Republic of Uganda. According to Wikipedia, it's a unitary presidential republic under a dominant party. The other things they said, but I didn't agree with them, so I'm not mentioning those. But there's something very unique about Uganda. The unique thing is there's very many unique things. Okay? One of them is the structure of the leadership. Okay, you have a president. They have two ladies. The VP is a lady, the PM is a lady. Now, the PM is the first female PM in Uganda. But what I found interesting was she has been a very dominant member of NRM. NRM. She was a Minister of Education. She has a background. This is what she's done. And the VP is also the first female VP. She's the 9th VP that Uganda has had. How many countries in the world do we have where you have a structure of leadership where you have two women in that very prominent position? Most countries have one and they really shout about it. Well, we are one of those countries that shout about it. We don't have a DP, but we have JC, we have AG. We're not doing too badly. CJ. You want to say CJ twice. The proverb.
Yep.
Even the king needs to be taught.
Senator?
Even the king needs to be
Taught.
Yes.
Yes, in reality, if you look at leadership under the African context, and that you go back to the historical perspective of it, we had our own ways on how even the person who was at the highest office, whether he was the president, whether in this case now we have presidents, or even those days we had our own leaders who were kings and chiefs, there was a way on how society had programmed itself. And this king, once he made his errors, he had people who would actually advise him and warn him and tell him the country was either going the wrong direction. And if he was doing well, they will, at the same time, they would tell him that.
Right.
So there is actually no contradiction in what I see happening even right now. The reality is that some of us have decided to just speak to power, and there's nothing that is going to stop us. I mean, like yesterday, I had somebody stop me somewhere, and I knew him, and he's a big businessman, and he was telling me, why is it that you're always telling the president this and that? Why don't you come and work with him? I said, I'd love to work with him. Let him just come and I tell him what he's doing wrong. That's if he's listening.
Yeah.
I'd love to work with him. I have no problem with working with him, because we have issues and we have problems, and we have to be honest about it.
Indeed.
Yes.
So I mean, that proverb kind of ties in exactly with what we're talking about today.
Yes.
Because we talk about the high level of accountability and responsibility that leaders must be held to, and I don't think there's been a time in Kenya of this magnitude where we see constant speaking, where we see constant calling out, and then one would ask, is it the right way to go about it? Is everything about the way things are currently going on the right way? We have social media now, which is a tool and a platform that has never been engaged the way in which it is being engaged today. Somebody has an issue, they put it there because it is bound to be read. Somebody will speak out and say, this cannot continue to happen. Would that be the kind of citizen governance that we're talking about that needs to happen?
My thinking is that, of course, times have changed and the reality has changed. But my reality as a politician is that the circumstances under which we've been operating have not changed. The expectation was that when President Ruto would become president, and he would come up with this bottom-up thing of his, and I listened to Barack really expound and explain what they were thinking about. The general feel is that the politician or the political class is the one which has refused to acknowledge and understand the times have changed and the events have changed and the people have changed. In this case, the people are the young ones. The young ones are engaged, they're informed, they're articulate, they have zeroed in on why they think there's a problem in the country. They do not have the nitty-gritties, and that is where I think people like me, people like Joe Wanjigi, people like Barack Muluka, who are willing, Jimmy Wanjigi, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, because Joe is different. Joe was his father, I think. Jimmy Wanjigi have been talking about these things, is that some of us have realized that the problem is not what we even just identify, that the problem are indeed structural. The very problems that you see are existential to the very existence of our country. I hear people talking about how these young men were trying to overthrow the government, and in fact, if you govern well, nobody would want to overthrow you. It's a reality. It's a fact. If you manage a company well, all right, let's just use a very simple analogy.
Right.
If you took a company, it's a bank, and you made sure that that bank is running reasonably well. You find that the bank had a debt or debts. You come in with a program with the management team that you have been hired with, that you sort out what the issue of these debts is. You then come in with this bank and you find there was no meritocracy, there was no management acumen used to either appoint or select or nominate individuals who are going to run the branches that you set of this bank. If you find that the consolidated an account that runs your company, or which is this bank in this case with the central bank, has got deficits, money is being pilfered from there, and if you find your internal auditors and your controller of your bank is telling you that no, you are spending too much, you are pilfering the resources, we are losing 106 billion. Imagine a bank losing 106 billion shillings. What would the MD of such a bank do? You either fix it or you resign. That's it. I mean, I don't see why people find that what we are raising is contradictory. We have a country where resources are being stolen, where the leadership class doesn't care, where our medical services are not being provided as expected. So the health sector is in a mess. The health facilities are not having equipment, medicines, and whatever that we need. We have the education sector, which is in a mess. There's no capitation. We have a problem with the exams. We are having a problem with class 7, 8 and 9. You are talking about what else can I talk about, Ndu?
The
university kids are not going to university. Why? Because you picked some model of funding which is absolutely obnoxious, and the courts have ruled so, and you're doing nothing about it. And in case you decided that you're going to have an election, you do not have an IBC in case the president dies. I mean, people die, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. And sometimes the president can die. And I mean, why are we behaving as if this is a private company that is going to run by a family and nobody cares about the people who live?
And yet, Senator, we have leaders who are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that these processes run.
Yes.
That ensuring that the livelihoods of Kenyans essentially will not be taken out of their mouth. I mean, the analogy for me, which in this case is a good one, is when the parents of the bird bring food in their mouths to the chicks in the nest, and the chicks essentially eat from their mouth. In this case, it's the other way.
The other way around.
Because the livelihood is basically being plucked out of the mouths of Kenyans.
Yes.
But then I have to ask that we have leadership that sits over these processes every day. Parliament sits every day.
Actually, no.
No, hold on. we have leadership that sits or supposedly sits over these processes every day and for whom are being compensated every day. So how can we say that there is a country in place? How can we say that?
Why I said no was this. Whenever we use the word leadership, what are we implying? We are implying that somebody who has either the mandate or has the ability to provide direction that is beneficial.
Absolutely.
If that direction is not being provided, how then do you claim to be a leader?
Yes.
We gave you a job. So there are these individuals whom we gave jobs of leadership. The moment you abrogate that duty, how then are you a leader? Who are you leading?
Yeah.
Because the people you are leading are telling you, we don't want to go that way. So you're supposed to show direction. The direction you've taken, you've been told countless times, we do not want to go in that direction.
So, can I tell you why they don't want to go in that direction?
Please.
Because the purpose and agenda of governance in our country as we sit on it today has nothing to do with changing the status quo of our people.
And yet you've all said that it
basically
is.
what you heard Barack talk about yesterday. This is an outfit that is designed by particular individuals who have formed a cartel and part of a group of individuals whose purpose and agenda is basically to manipulate, engage, and program government to become the engine of their private sector arrangements. These private sector arrangements being business transactions, pilfering money from government, organizing and planning on how services are not provided, but the money is always being taken out. It has been said severally by the Controller of Budget. It has been said by the Auditor General. The agenda is, you can see, we are already moving to a 4.6 trillion shilling budget. The question you ask is, the 3.3 trillion that we got last year, what has it done? You see, I mean, it is a system that is so broken. And that is why I've been telling my friends, and I mentioned this to my leader here and my young brother and Yundu. I feel the time has reached for Kenya to hold a Constituent Assembly discussing on the economic misgovernance and mismanagement of our state, and we will present evidence to show how the system has meticulously and systematically been broken to make sure that all these things fall into place, so that when individuals are beginning to share the loot, you can't stop them. That is why it is easy for them to continue borrowing. That is why it is easy for them to continue sharing whatever that is coming out from these deals. I mean, the airport deal of Adani is not an accident.
Yes.
What was going to happen to geothermal of Kenya, what is supposed to be happening to Kenya Power, these are not government programs which are moving efficiently and successfully to make sure that Kenyans get services. No, all these institutions are being broken down deliberately so that a few individuals can then begin to pocket, can then begin to take away resources which are supposed to be utilized to hold the Kenyans from not collapsing. All right.
And yet, when these things are being called out, because the information does become public at some point or another, when these things are being called out, or where the clamor for a kind of disassociation with this negative behavior is called for, these individuals are they're targeted.
No, who told you that it's negative
Individuals
behavior? The behavior you see these individuals having. I mean, the other day, you saw that there were people who went to some place where there was a marathon, and there were 19 helicopters.
Yes, they were.
And they were giving 15,000 to the people who ran and won.
Cheptais marathon?
Yes. It tells you the mindset. There's a mindset that certain individuals have, that all they ever came to do in government has nothing to do with public service.
And as we speak, let's go back to the preamble of the Constitution. We the people give power to this Constitution. We the people give the power to the governments that will form. And it is a situation that to see we the people have come up and say enough is enough. We need to be listened and things need to be done right. But even while doing that, abductions are happening. People turn up dead. In such a situation, and the responsibility of the government that be listening to we the people who give the Constitution and you the power and listening to its people, why are we not having a listening leadership?
The leadership believes that, number one, Kenyans have a short memory. particularly Kenyan voters, or rather the Kenyan poor.
Is that what they tell themselves?
That's what they believe. They believe that you actually go and hold elections, the purpose of which it gives you an advantage. You come to the Senate or the National Assembly to negotiate what you can carry with you out of that 5 years that you get. Where CDF, Kera money, NG and National Government Women Fund, these are all kitties which are designed and engaged purposefully to make sure that the leadership has a soft landing space. They're able to have cash. Now the money has increased. I can tell you the truth, because members of parliament are getting 250 million each for their education, blah, blah, bursaries. Go and see where the Auditor General has done in terms of how bursary money is being stolen. And in fact, I was completely disagreeing with my party when they are saying that governors and county governments are being fought by the control of budget. Why? Because the money that they are getting as bursary is helping the poor. We have been saying you can't take 109 billion shillings, which is money being shared between members of parliament, the executive and the presidency and his deputy, members of the, I was shocked the other day that members of the judiciary actually get some of that money for those bursaries.
To do what?
To give their relatives and friends. It's shared amongst all government departments. It is a kitty that softens our behavior. When you have been elected to the National Assembly, there is money that you get that quietens you.
So this is a question that we often ask in this room, Senator, because we say that before an election, you find a spirited man or woman, and it would appear as though their objective is to ensure that systems work properly, is to ensure that there's development, is to ensure that there's honor. You look at this individual and you're like, this is the panacea. This is what we actually need. And so we often wonder what happens when they actually get in.
When you get in, you find the loot.
Okay.
You find the loot. You are shown how the loot is shared.
Have you been?
There are members of parliament who will get 500 million shillings to Maram roads in their constituencies.
Yes.
There are others who have been given. I know of a member of parliament in the last budget. I don't know, they have deleted it because we started interrogating it, where somebody has been given, because he is in the budget committee, 1.5 billion shillings. To do roads in his one constituency.
When others are getting 150.
When others are getting 50 million. When somebody, the system, and the team here, what I'm actually saying is that the system right now is designed that there's no member of parliament who can say "Mwe," because if he says "Mwe," if the party leader realizes you are saying "Mwe" on some things which you are not supposed to say "Mwe," then you are supposed to be "Mwed," and you go "Mwe, Mwe, Mwe." So you go quiet, and you don't. How can we be a country that is running its budget and we don't have rules and regulations what you do with that budget?
But we do have rules and regulations.
The PFM Act has been violated.
Yes,
completely.
It is continuous.
We have governors who are spending 800, 900 million shillings fueling in a year county government vehicles. Can you imagine how much fuel that would run? All right. You have county governments where governors are paid 920 million shillings to a law firm. Which case is that a law firm goes to court? And how many years were those? And by the way, how much was the value of the laws for you to be paid 900 million? And yet we have EACC, which is a constitutional body, and yet we have DCI, and guys are talking about, you can't, what are you, you've not reported this to us. If you see how many letters some of us have written to these bodies, the system is deliberately and completely broken down.
So, when we are aware of some of these things, look, when you're on the inside and seeing some of these things, we don't, those are one, we'd hear or you'd smell, there's no smoke without fire. There must be something going on. And Kenyans open their mouths to complain about, the constant pilferage that's happening, the corruption which is through the roof, the lack of the desire to actually implement development agenda in the country. You have the people sick, you have the people poor, you have the people uneducated, you have infrastructure that does not allow a conducive environment for for development to thrive. All of these things happen concurrently. And there's a leadership in, okay, City doesn't like that word. There are people in place who've been given the mandate to ensure that these processes actually happen. Abi, how then? How do you wake up and go to Parliament? How do you sit there?
You see,
does it not create something in you?
The explanation you're giving, it is your description as you as in do. What you think. When you went to school, that's what they told you. That you come, you get responsibility. You go to school because you come, you're supposed to come and serve humanity, that you observe the law, that a country must be governed by rules of laws, and you have a constitution, and you agree to have order.
Okay, school and even conscience maybe would apply, right?
But who told you that that's what they think about? My reality is that is not what they think about. It is your imagination that is what they think about. I mean, why do you think that? The truth is, when do we ever sit to interrogate how we spend state resources and fairly and reasonably? What is there is that we have a system right now that is capitalistic based, that is designed in such a manner that the individuals who are in power will take it all. When you catch them trying to take it all, when they are trying to employ their relatives and their cousins and all that needs to be employed, and you start shouting, they call you, they say, come, we give you a few. When you say you are stealing state resources, stop what you're doing. When you engage and say, stop this nonsense you're doing, when you're trying to sell our airport, you're selling our technology, you are selling everything, they tell you, no, don't make too much noise. Come, we share what we are stealing.
So Onyonka was also approached and said, you know what, you're making a lot of noise about this Adani thing. You're making too much noise about how governance has gone through the roof.
I will tell you today, it is not the first time, neither is it going to be the last time. I have been informed that most people thought the reason why I was engaging so viciously and vociferously, that's the word I was looking for. Vociferously about the Adani issue when I had been given the information by the young man who gave me the information. They thought I was waiting for my take home. In fact, what vindicated me, many of them thought I had already been cashed in. In fact, they were checking to see whether I've changed my dressing and whether I bought 2 new cars.
You have a chopper.
And then what vindicated me was when the president announced and said, this deal is no longer there. They were like, you mean it was? That is how your leadership, and I'm talking about members of parliament, senators, governors, telling me, some of them said, we'll start calling you Adani because now you have got the Adani money. So you have from the county governments, what the governors do is completely understood because this is what the national government does. The governor goes and buys all the members of the county assembly. He uses the resources he has got, which is coming from the shareable revenue. He makes sure that he creates a system on how he removes that money to make sure that every MCA, at least on minimum, the MCA is on a 200,000 shillings per month take home.
Over and above
what his salary is. So they are not able to impeach him. Then you go to the national government. The presidency has made sure that there are certain favors you get. There are certain things they give you. If you are an MP, there are certain amounts of money. If you make too much noise, there is money they give you to quieten down. Look at how people behave when CDF is late for 2 days. They say we'll not pass any bills.
We'll shut this thing down.
Why is it that CDF is the only one that you can shut government, nothing else? Because that's the kitty that we share. That is the kitty that when it comes, now we take our children to St. Andrew's Story. We make sure most of them are going abroad for higher education. We make sure if we are a bit discontented and your family tells you, why do you have only a quarter an acre of land? That's how we are buying 500 acres of land, 800 acres of land.
You know, we only have a minute left, but I've got to remind you that these things that you're saying, you're saying them in broad daylight and people can hear you, right? You realize that you're saying them and that people can hear you.
What is it that I've never said?
We're talking about a reality.
What is it that I've never said before that I'm saying here that is not true? Every single thing I say. And I can come here and prove every single allegation I'm making.
So
I can show you how members of parliament, their audited reports where they put 70 million as bursary money, but at the end of the report, the auditor says no documents available to prove the expenditure.
Briefly,
And Senate will not convict.
What does that mean?
briefly, Senator, way forward, Kenya.
I believe, and I heard Barack speak wisely and intelligibly yesterday. We must begin. I mean, not we must begin. We must continue civic educating people. The problem in Kenya is that many people have got short memories because we are so entangled and engaged with our poverty, and we are struggling with the daily issues of life. Who really wants to care about what happens to the port of
You're
Mombasa?
very right. It's actually called the psychology of scarcity.
It's a psychology of scarcity. So we are in a position where you pity yourself so much, and people think if you start talking about this thing. I mean, I have been accused so many times that the reason why I make these allegations or I make these statements and say the truth about what is happening to our country is because I'm so pitifully poor. That I actually must be so angry with myself that I must blame somebody, because everybody else around my clique, my class, and my group is literally a I mean, you see, look at the vetting at the National Assembly.
3 billion, Bob.
I mean, somebody has got 3 billion, one has got 6 billion, one has got 2.6 billion. Do you know what I would do with 2.6 billion? I wouldn't want to be a goddamn minister in any government.
Well, I hear you
I would
on
be
that.
an industrialist. Why would you want to come and work in government if you have 2.6 billion?
I hear you. And many would say, Senator, thank you so much for being here. And we are very glad that you have said, Mwah.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.